One of the things I often see people confused about when opening their first offshore bank accounts is the questions that an offshore banker will ask. They may not have ever been asked so many questions when banking in their home country because there's inherently less risk for the bank in their home country. I'm going to talk about common questions an offshore bank may ask you and why they're going to ask you those questions and how you should respond. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, and the important thing to understand when you're banking offshore is that the bank has to assess the risk of dealing with you as a person or dealing with your business. When you're going into the offshore world, there are a lot fewer checks that they can run. It's not just a matter of everything's in one country and they can check your credit and they can check your references and they can just run you through their databases or check systems or whatever it is that they use to see if you're a good person to bank with. And so when people start going offshore, when they start even just sending money offshore from their domestic account, they're not used to being asked questions. There are, the way I see it, three different categories of questions that a bank will ask you, particularly when you're going to open an account. Not every bank will ask you all these questions. Some of them will ask you more casually. Some of them will want to dig in more deeply. The way I look at it is I use my supermodel approach. The more of a supermodel the bank and the country the bank is in are, the more questions they're going to ask and the more they're going to probe. So when you go to a Georgia or an Armenia, they might ask you, hey, where's the money coming from? And you say, my account in Australia. Okay, great, Australia. Meanwhile, when you go to Switzerland or Liechtenstein, they're not just going to ask, where's the money coming from? They're going to have a lot more detailed questions. But the three categories that the questions generally fall into is, who are you? Where is this money coming from? And what do you plan to do with the money? So let's start with, who are you? One of the questions that you have probably seen is an issue if you've been studying offshore banking for any amount of time is, are you a US person? Are you a US citizen? Are you a US taxpayer? The bank wants to know this because they want to comply with FATCA. If you are a US person, or even if you have what's called US indicia, like a US phone number, they have to verify because they don't want to become at odds with the US government. So are you a US person? The bank will also ask you, what country do you live in? Or perhaps, where do you pay tax? Which country do you pay tax? If you just go in and say, I'm a nomadic person, I don't pay tax, they're not going to like that. Okay, so where do you pay tax? What's your country of residence? And the reason they ask that is because now, in addition to FATCA, banks have CRS, the Common Reporting Standard. You can watch our video on that here on YouTube that explains it. So they're asking these questions because bank secrecy is basically dead, and they want to make sure that they can report your account to your home country. Okay? If you no longer live in your home country, they want to know where they can report it instead. That's a whole other matter. But it's a question that they're going to want to know. Where do you pay tax? And they're going to want you to have an answer. They're also going to ask you, are you a politically exposed person, a PEP? Do you have a family member or someone that you do business with closely, like a business partner, who is an important politician or a diplomat, someone who could potentially be vulnerable to corruption? Banks want to know because they don't want corrupt money. They don't want laundered money coming through their banks. They need to know, are you a politically exposed person? The next category of questions is, where is this money from? Banks want to understand, what money are they bringing into your system? People who have just been dealing in one country's banking system may not really understand how this works, because when you send money from the US to the US or Australia to Australia, they have their own internal checks, but it's really seen as a lot lower risk. When you start sending money from your account in the United States to go and invest in Kathmandu, that they might ask some questions. Doesn't mean you can't do it. Doesn't mean they won't allow it. Maybe that particular bank will give you a harder time and you need a different bank. But it's generally seen as higher risk to send money overseas. And so the flip side of that is a bank wants to know, before they accept your money, where's this money coming from? How is it earned? So the first question they might ask is, where is the money now? Which country do you plan to send the money from? And so if you plan to send your money from your bank account in Nigeria, they're going to ask you more questions. This is the benefit the people that we work with here at Nomad Capitalist have, is that countries like the United States are generally seen as pretty safe places for having money. People trust that the US government is not letting people just keep a bunch of hot money in their account more than they trust the government of Lesotho, for example, whether that's fair or not. So they're going to want to know, where is the money coming from? The tangent to that is that this is why I often recommend banking in some of these far-flung offshore havens. Because if you say, hey, I'm closing down my Belize company with my Samoa bank account, they might raise an eyebrow at that because they think that Samoa has fewer checks than the UK or the US or Canada does, okay? So where's the money coming from? They're also going to want to know how much money. Part of this is because every bank has their own minimum requirements. They want to make sure that you have enough money to open the account, but they want to understand how much money is coming in. What is the source of these funds? How did he earn this money? This question always seems kind of weird to me because let's say I'm funding an account with like a $50,000 minimum. I don't know, was that the $50,000 I earned from my business? Was that the $50,000 I made from selling a business in the US? Was that $50,000 I got from something else? Who knows? But they want to know the $50,000 you're sending, how was that money earned? They also want to know, what's the nature of your business? What business do you do now? Okay. And so are you going to be adding new money to the account? Is this going to be an account where you are just going to be sending in money once and leaving it? Are you going to be sending money consistently? Where's that money going to be coming from? What's that for? Is there money coming from a different country? Will you be receiving money from a third party, i.e., is it a gift? Is someone else funding it? Who are they? Okay. The easiest thing to do is just to send yourself your own money. That's what they like to see. Where's that money coming from? How did you earn it? And if you're planning on adding, let's say, a salary coming in the future, they're probably going to want to know about that as well. What's the nature of the business that you're running? What's your job? What do you do? If you are, the entertainment business, let's say like the adult entertainment business, porn, or you're in some kind of, gambling business, or even industries like real estate sometimes, that can be sensitive, and they're going to want to know more about that. And they might choose not to take your account. The last category of questions is, what do you plan to do with the money once it's in the account? Again, part of this is the bank wants to see if you're a good fit for their account. And again, a bank in, let's say, Georgia or Armenia is going to be far less interested in this because they just want to open accounts, put $1 there, forget about it. They don't really care. When you go up the food chain, banks are going to start caring a lot more. So what do you plan to do with the money? Are you going to have it sit there? A lot of banks will say, oh, do you want us to manage it for you? What people don't understand is a lot of private bankers are basically financial advisors. They are on commission, and they want to invest your money. A lot of the banks in Switzerland and Austria and that part of the world, they want to manage your money. They want to be investing in stuff. They don't want to just park there. Whereas banks in Asia are more open to just letting you park cash. Are you going to have transactions? Again, coming back to the salary. Or are you going to have other people sending you money? Are you making payments for some kind of real estate? What kind of transactions do you expect to have in this account? Do you want us to manage it? Do you want us to invest it? How long do you plan on keeping the money here? They want to understand what the pattern you're going to be using to manage the account. And is it going to be transactional, or is it just going to be more of parking your cash, storing your money in their bank? And they want to know how that's going to work. So that's an example of some of the questions that banks are going to ask you. Again, I think that when people first go offshore, they find this is very confusing and even off-putting because they're not exactly sure how to handle it. What you will realize over time is this is standard procedure. Again, it can feel a bit like an interrogation the higher up the food chain you go. And so for me, that's why I often recommend for entrepreneurs who don't have time for a lot of back and forth, find a place that's in the middle of the food chain that offers great stability, high quality banks, access to your cash, good internet banking, etc. And we don't need to go up to the heights of Switzerland where they're really particular about making sure that they get only really solid clients. There are good banks that are going to ask you fewer of these questions, or that will let you answer them more conveniently. But either way, these are questions that you should have the answers to. It's relatively common. I think it's going to be becoming increasingly uncommon even in domestic banks, but you should have answers to these questions. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6 or 7 figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.